One. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ttrpg Designer Spotlight, a special program where we uplift and showcase the work of game designers, especially those of marginalized identities. And with that, I and this channel stand against genocide, ethnic cleansing, and support all the oppressed peoples of the world struggling against injustice, imperialism, and colonization. Free Congo, free Sudan, and free Palestine. On that note, I do want to take a little longer. God damn it, the labels are swapped around. I will fix that in a second. On that note, I do, before I do adjust that, I think it's important that I take a moment to talk about the situation in Palestine properly. As we return after a global strike and the ICJ's recent ruling, as historic as it is, we must not be complacent. We must continue to speak up for the people of Palestine. We must continue to speak up against the genocidal violence, the humanitarian crises that is faced by the Palestinian people, and not relent. The powers that be are waiting for us to be complacent and to stay silent, and we shall not do so. Please join me, contact your representatives, join in protest if it's safe for you to do so. Speak up on social media, continue to mount the pressure. The propaganda machine will not work any longer, but it requires your voice to be dismantled. Your voice matters more than you know. Do not relent. Support the people of Palestine. Free Palestine. And with that, I will adjust the the settings while I introduce myself. Hello, everybody. I'm Valiant Doran. I use he and his pronouns. You can find me all on the internet at Valiant Doran or at Otso SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure I just set you on. And tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of having our remarkable guest, Gnome, here, who is our designer for this evening. Gnome, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I first want to say I love that you made that statement. I'm very much in support of a free Palestine, and being an anti-Zionist Jew is certainly a time and a place to be right now. So I really appreciate you making that statement. That was beautiful. But hello, hi everybody. My name is Gnome or Luca. You can call me either or. My pronouns are he, him. I am a trans content creator. I do a lot of TTRPG things as well as a lot of stationary stuff. I mostly journal stream now, but I was doing a lot of like podcasting and streaming tabletop role playing games and designing games and writing adventures and things like that. Kind of in my yesteryears of internet influence, I guess.
Amazing. Hold on. Oh, they're covered by a notification. My captions. Oh no. Let me fix that. Apologies, everyone, for the tech issues.
Also, Super Dylan, I love your face.
We love Super Dylan here in this chat. By a notification. That's really weird. It's looking a little different on my end, but I will adjust anyway. Just to make sure. Alright, I'll just keep an eye on it, but hello, everybody. It just went away. No worries. Thank you for telling me because I want to make sure the stream remains accessible. Behave, OBS. With that, let's talk about today's show. Before we get right into it, the game that we'll be covering this evening is obviously by Gnome. It is called Cassini. It is a space exploration game where you build your solar system, explore, discover, and finally end your mission by stuffing it in flame, which is something we will definitely get into. I find it very, very, very cool. And we're gonna definitely talk more about it. We're gonna talk about the themes, we're gonna talk about the game design principles as usual. And before we get fully into it, if you are enjoying today's designer spotlight, consider donating and leaving us a tip. The funds raised will be distributed evenly towards our tech producer, myself, as well as our guest designer Gnome over here. So use ! donate in chat to join us. Dylan, thank you so much for the subscription. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And with that, I am so excited for us to talk about Cassini and this particular game that you have crafted. But before we can talk about any of that, we have to know about your origin story. We have to know about the gnome origin story. I want to know how you got into the TTRPG hobby.
Wow, that. Let's see. Going back about 20 some odd years, a long time ago. No, for real though, a long time ago, back when I was in 7th grade, there was a
Mm.
very nerdy history teacher who ran a miniature society club. And
Ooh,
I didn't know
okay.
what that was, but one of my friends was like, "You should come and hang out with me there." And I'm like, "Okay." I don't know what it is. And it was a bunch of people, again, what 7th grade? We were like 12, 13 years old.
Mhm.
And there were these tables with this like fake grass and rolling hills and things like and like
Mm.
rocks and stuff. And then there were little like Civil War miniatures or like World War II miniatures or
Mm.
little airplane guys. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool, but I don't care about any of these wars. um so
Yes.
I was 12, but I was like, this is awesome, but probably not for me. But my friend was like, did you know that there's a fantasy version? And I'm like, go on. And then I was a Warhammer girly.
Oh,
Back in the day when I was
you
a
were a
girl.
Warhammer
i was
girly.
I did Warhammer, and I was hooked, and so was my wallet. And I would spend 6 to 10 hours on the weekends playing these long war campaigns with like
Mm.
2,000 point armies with my friends, and like it was great. It was super awesome. And then I kind of fell off, right, as
Mhm.
one does, because I was like in sports and activities, and then went to high school and eventually kind of like made my way back to tabletop role playing games like Dungeons
Mm.
and Dragons. I'm like, oh, this sounds like really cool. I've kind of always wanted to play, but like I never had anybody really play with. And
Mhm.
I remember seeing um, like Critical Role way, way, way back, and it's like super like
Yes.
maybe episode like 20 is when I randomly tuned in and
Mm.
saw it on like YouTube, and was like, oh, this is cool. I can do it. So I picked up a book,
Mhm.
got some friends, started streaming, and learned how to play D&D.
That is
Well, that was all
it.
she wrote.
That is immensely wild to me because I know that you are a Lord of the Rings fan, like myself. We're both Lord of the Rings nerds. Uh, I was for sure thinking that your origins were in Dungeons and Dragons because of the LOTR link. But hearing that you got into Warhammer first, and then
Got no Warhammer first, yeah. But there was I also played the Lord of the Rings, um, Battle of whatever, which was like a war miniature game as well.
this is news to
And so
me.
like,
I've never heard of
yeah,
this.
yeah, there used to be, and so like you could be the armies of men, you could be the army, you could be the elven armies, you could have a dwarven army, and then you would have like the little the little I say the little they're the miniatures. You could have the fellowship in there, and they
Mhm.
like award you had like certain rules in roles that you could make and points that you could have to like you
Mm.
know rouse your armies and like succeed 100% succeed on a roll or something with like a fate
Mm.
point or a hero point. I don't know, it was very complicated, but it was a lot of fun.
I didn't know that Lord of the Rings had a war game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I still had the miniatures, and I don't know where they went.
so hearing that origin, you went from war games, specifically with Warhammer and Lord of the Rings, and then you started tuning into Critical Role, which has been a lot of folks' very common starting point in wanting to venture into Dungeons and Dragons. Did I hear that right? That you went, huh, Dungeons and Dragons, cool. I'm gonna also start streaming this. Is that how you? That's how
Yeah,
you first started playing. You
that's how
immediately
I
went
first started
into
playing. Yeah,
streaming.
I was first time GM, and I got a bunch of my like work buddies and then
Mm-hmm.
my ex-wife at the time to come play, because I had my schedule because I was a paramedic at the time. So I
Yes.
was like on like a weird 24 hours on, 48 hours off.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of time on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was like, let's stream this. I don't know. So
That
I
is
got a couple of like cameras and my Blue Yeti mic, and we started streaming.
We all remember the Blue Yeti mic. We
Yeah,
all do.
I love the Blue Yeti.
The origin
It was
story.
an omnidirectional mic. You only needed the one. It was great.
The origin story of so many streamers. I find that so intriguing that you went immediately to streaming rather than playing the game like in a home game or something. What I mean, other than being inspired by Critical Role, was it just by sheer queer and trans audacity that you were like, oh yeah, how hard can it be? That made you start streaming?
Pretty much. So like my ADHD personality type is if I see something like interesting, I go, oh, I can do that. And then I do it. Then I became a video editor, then I became a podcast editor, and then I became a photographer, and then it keeps going.
It just keeps going. That is so especially relatable because I also have ADHD, and it has reached that point for me now where I go, the best way to utilize this gift of mine is to create a domino effect with my hyperfixations and to learn new skills that way. Because
yeah, absolutely, that's how it works. I don't know.
When you become a Twitch streamer, you gotta learn how to do all these other things. So
you gotta be everything.
You gotta do and be everything. Oh my goodness, that is an incredible origin story. We love queer and trans power and audacity here on this stream. Amazing. And after hearing that origin story, what are the things that because again you are a fellow person with ADHD, what do you think has kind of kept your interest, of captured you about TTRPGs? What's your favorite thing about them?
Ooh, I think my favorite thing about RPGs is community or like collaborative storytelling. There's something that is captivating where every session is different, that it holds my interest personally, because it then builds up to something greater, but it's not something that's repetitive. Like I can play a video game and then it gets repetitive and then I'm like, I don't like this, I'm not going to finish it. But with TTRPGs, it just feels so different, and I don't know, I really do enjoy that difference of like being able to, like, you have no idea what's coming. You have no idea. Everything can change because of the die roll.
It's true.
Or what somebody else says,
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite aspects about TTRPGs. And you made that love from TTRPGs and from initial Warhammer gaming days to designing a game of your very own with Cassini. And I wanted to ask you about that origin point of coming to your own as a game designer. What made you go, yes, it is time for me to now make a game?
Ooh, I saw other people doing it. I was like, oh, I wonder if I can like do it. And so my buddy at the time, Anarsis, big shout out to Anarsis on this, had a game jam on Itch and was like, the theme was like the end. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm gonna make a space game about the end. And that was it. I did that. I started doing that. I wrote, designed, and pretty much went to print in the span of like 24, 48 hours. It was my hyperfixation. I wrote the game in about 8 hours.
You are so incredibly powerful for writing a game in 8 hours in that time. That is so incredibly powerful of you. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that, because that is phenomenal. And this is obviously, the game is Cassini, and it is your first game that you have designed, and it is a science fiction game and a sci-fi space exploration game. Are you a big sci-fi fan? I think I know the answer, and I think the answer is yes. And if so, were there any particular pieces of media that inspired Cassini?
Yeah, so I am a big sci-fi fan, but
Mhm.
funny enough, like when people ask you, like the sci-fi question is Star Trek or Star Wars, and I go neither,
I
neither.
know better than to ask that because as a
Like
long-suffering Star Wars fan, I know better.
yeah, I don't know, like Star Wars was cool and Star Trek was cool, but I never like latched on to either of them. It was just
Mhm.
I don't know, but I love reading like sci-fi. I
Mhm.
love I loved like things like Lost in Space. I was a really big fan
Mm.
watching growing up as a kid.
Mhm.
And I just liked space. I always wanted to go to space camp. I wanted to become an astronaut, but like I didn't have the grades to do that. So I would watch like C-SPAN or whatever the channel it was
Mhm.
on, but like that would have like the spacewalks and whatnot. And I just like I really loved that stuff growing up.
Mm.
And um, in high school, I'm pretty sure, was the Cassini-Huygens mission, which was this dual project that
Mhm.
sent a projectile up all the way to Saturn. And so it was taking photographs through its journey and obviously taking as much data that it
Mhm.
could. And it made a couple trips around Saturn, but it was really also intended to go to Saturn's moons and to see if it was viable for them to invest in going to one of the moons to see if there was liquid or frozen water.
Mm.
Um, and so that was like the main mission of it. But it captured like these beautiful photographs of Saturn and the moons and
Mm.
just brought back some really wonderful and beautiful data. And it took, you know, these two massive teams to do it. And I grew up just watching and tracking this particular mission for I don't know. I just clung to it, right? That ADD
Yeah.
brain just kind of like you find the one thing and you stick to it. And I stuck to that one. And I just kind of grew up with it. And it was just it was beautiful when the mission
Yeah.
ended. It was a tearful, you know, journey because to preserve the moon with the frozen water, which
Mhm.
confirmed, right? Um, they crash landed the Cassini-Huygens probe into a different moon, so that they didn't contaminate that particular one. And I was like,
Mm.
that's beautiful. That's so sad. It's so tragic.
It is.
But yeah, and so that is the heart of what my game Cassini is
Mhm.
it is a love letter to the people who made this mission possible and who made that
Mhm.
exploration possible. So
Yeah, that I didn't realize the huge rich history behind Cassini and the literal actual space exploration that
yeah, yeah.
inspired it. That's incredibly cool, and it answers a lot. Like I can see a lot of the design choices and why they came to be what it is. But we will be talking about that in a hot second. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about more about you as a designer and ask you the question I ask all of my designers as they come here on Designer Spotlight. What do you think is a gnome core game?
Oh, what's a gnome core? I'm no. You prepped me on this one,
I did.
and
I
I'm
I did.
terrible at doing homework. So, no, what is a gnome core game? I think a lot of people like as like a content creator, right?
Mhm.
People like would be like, oh, there's obviously got to be like a space aesthetic and it's got to be like vaporwave style, and they're not wrong. And they're not wrong, but
Mhm.
like I love Starfinder. I think
Yes.
Starfinder is an awesome, awesome game. It is both satisfying as a war gamer, which is what I came from,
Mhm.
because it's very crunchy. It's a crunchy rule
Yes, it
system,
is.
but it also has this massive expanded universe of lore. You
Mm.
never have to touch anything in the official like like stories that you can
Mm-hmm.
run. You can literally. I still one day want to play on the sun. You can go to the sun, and there's a whole society that lives on the sun, and I will one day go and experience that. But like the lore is so rich.
Yeah.
So you have this super crunchy game,
Mm-hmm.
but also this beautifully written and crafted history of massive galaxies
Mm-hmm.
with solar systems and hundreds of different species to choose from. It's right up my alley. It's a very good expression of what I like. So
So,
I would say Starfinder.
as a designer, then, is that really important to you? Is designing games that have a huge like lore like core to them, a huge sort of like world and world building built into the mechanics and into the presentation of the game itself?
I don't think it to me it as far as like designing things goes, I I want the players to be able to come up with lore, like especially if I'm GMing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really like when mechanics empower players to use the lore, but to also create their own. So
Mm.
like this lore exists, but there's so much. Like there's like 4 species books, and I only have one. Like I'm pretty sure they're at like archive 4 or 5 now at this point, and like that's great and that's wonderful. And if we ever play a game, y'all can play whatever you want to play, but like it there's so much. There's too
Yes.
much sometimes. And that
Mm-hmm.
might be really overwhelming, especially to new players, or if I'm trying to get somebody to play this game that I want to play. So it was important for me in design to allow players to again empower players to come up with their own worlds so
Mm-hmm.
that they know at least at the base like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to worry too much about that, because I always stress about like if I'm playing Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, did I do this right? Was this elf prince in existence
Yeah, like in
in the same
lore. Yeah.
game? There's so much lore, and like my brain doesn't remember the Silmarillion much. So like I'm told like I know my Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know Lord of the Rings, and so like
Yeah.
there's a little like insecurity, and um I don't want to make players have that anxiety. I don't want to make players feel
Mm-hmm.
that sort of way, like they have to know everything. I want them to be able to just dive right in and
Mm-hmm.
contribute to the world.
Mm. No, that is such an important aspect about like game design. I find as a new game designer that has interviewed a bunch of game designers, it's such an interesting tightrope to be able to walk on, of finding that balance of providing enough structure for players of various play styles to find their footing in a game that you're creating, but at the same time grant them that freedom to go beyond the Ken that you have created for them, and know that they're empowered to do so. It is definitely a very challenging ask, but it's fun. It's a fun experiment, all the same. Thank you. That was a really, really good and insightful answer. Whenever I think about Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion and the lore that is contained in everything, my brother has gone. We rewatched the entire trilogy recently, and he's decided to watch all the lore videos of Lord of the Rings recently. So he'll have it on in the living room, and I'll just sit down and go, I don't remember who this person is. And he's like, yeah, it's from the Silmarillion. I'm like, that's why. That's
That
why I
would be
know.
why.
That would be why I know
That would
nothing.
be why. Have you been able to watch Rings of Power?
I have watched Rings of Power. I did
I love.
enjoy it.
I love it. I thought it was a beautiful masterpiece. I could talk forever about Rings of Power, and I won't do that here. But as far as like to connect it to what we're talking about, like as far as world building and
Mhm.
having different mechanics, right? So not only do you have a show that can't use the Silmarillion
Yes.
because it's copywritten, right? They
Yes.
don't own the IP of the Silmarillion. They
Yes.
basically had to write a fan fiction of it. So there's different world building, there's different exploring, there's
Mhm.
different all sorts of stuff, but it still ties in like important elements. And it also had to not be Peter Jackson's vision
Mm,
of what Lord of the Ring was. It had to not be what the cartoon was. It had to not be quite what Tolkien, envisioned as
mm,
well. So it had to do something super different, but still playing in the same sandbox of
mhm.
this is a Lord of the Rings thing, and I thought it did it so well.
Calling Rings of Power the fan fiction of Silmarillion is so incredibly funny, and I can't wait to tell my brother that afterwards. We will both enjoy that very, very
I
much.
don't mean it as like a slight either.
No, no,
I
it's not.
genuinely
It's
mean like
true.
this is really really good.
It's really, really good. And it's really, really fun. But I do understand kind of like looking at that, what they have done in Rings of Power is maybe a good guideline to new GMs and to new game designers on how to toe that line of opening up the possibilities while still staying true to the spirit of whatever it is that you're making. And
Yeah, absolutely.
speaking of staying true to the spirit of things that you are making and creating, Cassini is inspired by a real space exploration program that actually happened. So we know what inspired Cassini and inspired this particular game, and it is a game of incredible specificity because not only is it inspired by that particular exploration, but you have designed this game to be a specifically a space exploration game that you design the system that you are exploring, your ship, and this mission will end by the end of the play time. It is contained like 3 to 4 hour game time. And I wanted to ask you about that choice to make this game a short and contained experience rather than an open space exploration game that you could have done probably with the same mechanics.
Yeah, like would I like to make a bigger space game eventually? Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
But I designing Cassini was one. It was my first time designing anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my first time participating in a game jam. And the game
Yes.
jam specifically was it has to end. Whatever you make,
Mm-hmm.
end is the theme.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, Cassini makes sense. That mission literally ended, and it ended in flames.
Mm.
And so I was like, this feels perfect and thematic. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make a game that you you spend your hour building the solar system. You have this really cool solar system that you've built now.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Wow, you want to go explore it. Well, now you need something to go explore it with. So
Mm-hmm.
now you're going to go ahead and make your probe. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Now I love my probe. And then you go and explore and you get to learn something about, one of the planets or one of the moons
Mm-hmm.
or an asteroid that's floating around in your system. And then that's it. You
Yeah.
end it.
Yeah.
And that's the end. You don't get to know what else is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I will never know
Mm-hmm.
if we ever, make it to one of the moons and see if, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's life, out there, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like, it's probably not going to be a thing that's discovered in my lifetime because the
Mm-hmm.
technology needs to advance. We need to be, time is still slow when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to traveling in space.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this tragedy
Yes.
of ending a program like the Cassini-Huygens mission where
Mm-hmm.
it's not one of those that just continue to circulate and we get fed, information after information, constantly until something happens to the
Mm-hmm.
probe or something happens to, it just runs out of energy, whatever
Yeah.
happens, right? Um, no, they had to watch years and years and years of
Mm-hmm.
love and labor
Mm-hmm.
just end in an instant. And I thought that was beautiful and poetic and kind of I love the like existential philosophy
Mm-hmm.
of it as well. Like, what does it mean that we did this? Does it mean anything? I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of like where that inspiration came from.
Mm-hmm.
One was to follow the rules of the game jam, but also um, try to express what it means to destroy something you love.
Mm. And I do want to delve deeper into that because endings is such a really, really key and important aspect of this particular game. The game ends with fire and flame. Unless it is unsafe for you to do so, do not set anything on fire. There's a disclaimer in the rulebook about that. And I, as a legally trained individual, will remind you of that as well. Please do not set things on fire when it is unsafe. But yeah, there's
Game
this.
requires parental supervision.
This game requires parental and adult supervision. Amazing. But yes, there's this sort of like element of endings and being comfortable with endings as a game designer. Were there any concerns about being able to design what feels like a fulfilling end? And in your opinion as a game designer, what, from a designer standpoint, what makes a good ending for players to buy into from a design perspective?
From a design perspective, I mean, your players need to be invested, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to be. That you need to want them to care about what's going on, so that when the end does happen, they're devastated, but like in the best sort of way. I'm trying to think of like games and stuff that like really do that well, and I'm just drawing like blanks. But like there's just a lot of build up, and I think sometimes games forget to just give players the agency and the power to take control of the worlds that they're playing in, so that when something does happen, it's impactful and they care about it. They care about this random little NPC that you made. They care about the big bad that was supposed to be this horrible, heinous, awful person, but you happened as a GM to give them just an ounce of humanity, and now they're like, can we save them? You know, like you gotta let the players get involved, and that was from the get-go. One, I thought about replayability. I want people to be able to replay this game and to continue to be able to have those experiences of feeling that dread. Now they'll have the dread of knowing that they're going to end their mission, but they're also going to have that sorrow of like, well, there's like 20 other things that we could have explored. What was on those? You have no idea. You have no idea what's out, just as we don't have any idea what's out there.
Yes.
So that was very important to give players the control and the power. You build the world. You tell me what's out there. You roll some dice and let your imagination just kind of roam with it, and then go wild and go explore and go play in this sandbox that you built, that maybe you didn't put sand in it. Maybe you put like shiny pebbles or marbles or marshmallows in, and then that's it. That's it. That's the end.
That is so beautiful. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Lord Ganesha from Hinduism and from the Hindu stories that I grew up with. And he was asked one time by a monkey, what in your opinion is a good story? And Ganesh says, what it has always been. It is a conflict, song and dance, grief, love for the lover, love for a mother, love for the land, comedy, terror, one tremendous villain whom we must love also, and all these elements properly balanced and mixed together, item after item, like a perfect meal with a dance of taste. And that's the quote, and I think you contain that sort of like similar energy of, you gotta have that investment for the players, and as a designer, building that into different phases of play, that investment, that joy of creation, of playing and exploration, and then allowing everything to kind of wrap up and be snuffed up in the end, whether by ripping up the pieces of paper and throwing it into the bin, or setting it on fire, which is the most metal way to end a game, in my opinion. And I find it very, very cool.
Dramatic.
It is dramatic. And you know what? The drama, it's feeding me. I love that very, very much. And I love it so much. And you've designed this game with I heard when I asked you a question earlier about your favorite aspects of a TTRPGs, and you mentioned collaborative storytelling. And I find that very interesting because you've designed Cassini to be a GMless game, firstly, but a inherently collaborative game between, I believe, 2 to 4 players. I believe is the number of players that you have listed in the game. And I wanted to ask you about that choice to make it a GMless game and a full player based collaborative game. Was there is there a preference that you have between GMless games and a GM'd game, or was this meant to be like, or is this the particular experience you needed the exploration game to feel like?
Yeah, I wanted when I was designing the game, I wanted this game to be like a quick, like 30-minute, 60-minute game
Mm-hmm.
where this is like your warm-up game, right? This is the
Gotcha.
game that's gonna set the tone for you've got some friends over for game night
Mm-hmm.
and y'all just want to play something. This is very simple rules, which was very important to me. And I wanted folks to be able to be like, yo, let's just crack this out. Let's do a round of it and then we'll go play, Mansions of Madness or something like that. Like so having a GMless game was very important to me because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, like, I'm the GM and I don't
Yes.
always get to play the game. So I also wanted to give those people who are GMing the opportunity to just tell a story
Yes.
with the players and be a player and experience the game. I
Mm.
don't think Cassini would be what it is or convey the thoughts and emotions that I really wanted it to convey
Mm-hmm.
if there was a GM to it,
Yes.
or somebody who was facilitating the game. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
think that would pull away from the collaborative nature of Cassini.
Mm. and and now hearing the like origin story of the space exploration, and that it is a uh very much a group of people, a huge team that probably worked to put this exploration together, and go ahead and explore the cosmos and find out whether there's water on Saturn. I think that's so incredibly beautiful. And I can't wait for us to dive even deeper into the mechanics after this break. Hello, everybody. This is a great time for me to remind you, please, to get up, stretch, pet your pets, tell them Mr. Valiant Dorian loves them very, very much. And as we take this break, we'll take about 5-10 minute break. We'll come back and we're going to go through each of the phases of Cassini and talk about the game and the gameplay, and maybe encourage you to pick up Cassini and play it at home for your next board game night. And with that, join us for that 5 to 10 minute break. We'll see you then. Take care, everyone. BRB. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Designer Spotlight. I hope you took that break to get up, stretch, pet your pets, tell Mr. Van Doren love them very, very much. And with that, we're back with the latter half of our Designer Spotlight, where we're here to chat with Gnomedic as well as his game Cassini, a space exploration game where you build your solar system, analyze its truths, and then burn it all down. Which is very, very fun and very, very exciting. We've already talked about the inspiration, a lot of Gnome's design ideas and philosophies when building games. And now we're going to get right into Cassini itself. And if you want to pick up Cassini and try out this game and read along with us, go ahead and check it out on itch.io. Use exclamation point Cassini to go and grab yourself a copy. And with that, let's talk about the rulebook and let's talk about the mechanics of Cassini. So the game is split into 4 distinct phases. And these phases of play show distinctly that it's the creation, the exploration, the analyzing of truths, and then finally when you end the game. And they are all important aspects of the game and for the gaming experience of that feel of exploration, especially now that I know about the actual Cassini space program. I'm gonna look this up after this. You can tell that my interest is piqued. So the first phase of the game is the building phase. This is where players roll a die and determine how many planets there are in the solar system. And in this section of the rulebook, There, I remember reading this and going, "Wow, I did not know nearly enough about space that I thought I did." How much research did you put into this section of the rule book to come up with the elements that players are able to roll for? So, for example, folks at home, you can determine the types of planets based on the d6 roll that you make, and there's some ideas here. You could roll a d10 to pick up a unique planetary feature, like a reverse axis or violent storms, asteroid rings, things like that. And I wanted to ask you, no, did you put a lot of research into this, or is this just your hyperfixation that you were able to just go, yes, this is exactly the kind of vibe I want to throw into the rule book and into the writing?
Yeah, no, these are all like actual things that happen in space that we have learned at the time, or like I had just actually finished a course in school. I was going back to school,
Mm-hmm.
and I had taken a class called Habitable Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the purpose of the class was to learn about the composite, like how to detect and translate data from the
Mm.
composition of planets to determine, to determine whether or not they were potentially habitable.
Okay.
Um, and like it was real information. We were looking at real stars
Mm.
and trying to determine if those stars had planets
Mm-hmm.
that were orbiting. And then once we figured that out, what type of light was being, sent back and what signals were being sent back to us.
Mm.
And using a lot of math and a lot of Excel spreadsheets, could determine that like this planet has an atmosphere, but it's a
Mm.
methane atmosphere, so it's not habitable for us. And it was a really eye-opening experience, and to be part of that just made me feel like a scientist. It
Mm-hmm.
was a really, really great class, and I wish I had more classes like that and that were taught in the way that that was taught.
Yeah.
It was so like my final was like here's a map of 300 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Go find me a habitable planet.
Oh.
That's how common potentially habitable planets are. That was what blew my mind. Is there are so many stars out in the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trillions and trillions of stars.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I should say billions and billions and billions of stars, with trillions and trillions and trillions of planets. And
Mm.
finding one habitable planet in 300 is pretty common now. Um,
Okay.
now that our technology has increased. So yeah,
Mm.
this is all like common. Like to determine the type of planet, you could have like a terrestrial type planet. They're categorized in the four things. You could have the dwarf, the gas giant, and ice giant, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And those are things that you can actually figure out just by literally seeing as the planet eclipses the sun, or
Mm-hmm.
the sun is our sun,
Yeah.
but their sun, that star, right?
Yeah.
There's usually like an aura that goes around, and you're getting that data that comes back, and
Mm.
that's what determines what the composition of the planet is. And it's wild that we can figure this out from trillions of miles away.
That is really really wild, and I find that so interesting that you had a whole class to kind of like discuss and learn
Yeah.
about calculating and determining the habitability of particular planets.
Mhm.
When this particular game, there is a very key theme of, and it is reminded throughout the text of the rulebook, that you live on the only planet with known life, and that you are currently at this juncture of time currently incapable of piloted space travel, and you're there kind of like surrounded by the vastness of space and all that exists out there. And I wanted to hear your opinion on that particular design choice to have that particular, like, oh, you can't go on piloted space travel yet. So this is this isn't about exploring planets for life. It's about learning truths. Uh, why'd you design the game that way?
Because that is the that's the secret of life right now.
Mm.
There's um there's an equation known as the Drake equation,
Okay.
and that is where it's an equation that can determine if there's life out there, right?
Mm.
But right now, our problem with the equation is we only have a base value of one, an observable value of one,
I
which
see.
is us.
Hmm.
And so to come up with a game that really explores this potential opportunity to there could be life out there. There
Mm-hmm.
could be life out there because you put down that you wrote that there's life on this planet that you're about to go explore,
Mm-hmm.
but you never find that. And so when you burn up your probe and you burn up the rest of the entries, you have no idea
Mm.
if there was life on that planet or not. It's because it's so big, we just miss it. You know,
Yeah.
we're sending these little tiny itty bitty probes out there, and there's only so much that we can observe. And right now, the observable universe says it's just us. But
Mm.
there are just so many
Mm-hmm.
planets out there. And I gotta live in a time, or we gotta live in a time
Yeah.
where we went from, like, I don't know if you remember Planet X
Yes,
being
I
a
do.
really big deal.
Yes.
Like, whoa, Planet X at the edge of our solar system? What
Mm-hmm.
is this? Like, no, there's probably actually a couple more.
Yeah.
It's more common than we think within our own solar system.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're looking at other stars and going, whoa, there's like other Earth like planets that are out there that are in this habitable zone, that could harbor life.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps not life as we know it,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps life as we know it.
Yeah.
Science says that we should pretty much have similar things, right?
Mm.
That we, that we need to have like carbon-based life forms.
Yes.
But also, do we? Why can't we have people who are, in methane-based systems?
Mm.
We don't know. We have no idea. So there's this whole, again, like I come back to that almost existential dread of like
Yes.
that overwhelming emptiness. Like, it's just us.
Us.
There is all of this space
Mm-hmm.
and nobody else.
Mm. It's
Sit with
scary.
that for a second.
Yeah.
And now you're going to play a game about that. And it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel strange, but
Mm.
there's also, it allows you to appreciate the beauty that is
Mm.
what you know, the life, the rocks that we have, the water, our precious air.
Mm.
Those are very important elements that I wanted to really capture in the game by
Mm.
bringing in more um, like real science into the game instead of it being a science fiction
Mm.
um, as a base.
Yeah. And you carry a lot of that themes of this of being comfortable with discomfort is like the best way uh I can describe it. And you continue that in phase 2 when you develop when this is the section after US players have built your little planets, you have oriented your solar system including your home world, and are now getting to the point where you have to choose your destination, build your spacecraft, and also create discoveries. And a lot of the elements of discomfort here that I wanted to touch on is the fact that, hi, you get to the point where you can deploy your spacecraft. Congratulations. If you roll a 1, your spacecraft is destroyed and the game ends. And that's it. The
That's
game
it.
is
You don't even
over.
get to explore. You don't even get to explore. All that work that you did, it's just gone.
Yeah.
But that's reality.
Yeah.
That is real. That's how the real world works, and
Mm-hmm.
it sucks.
And it sucks,
But it
and
just
the
makes you do it
ending
again.
and the ending happens again where you burn up your discoveries in a glass bowl, or recycle your paper if it's unsafe to burn them. I have to keep saying, and begin the game again, starting with phase 2 at that almost mimicking that similar struggle that our scientists have to endure constantly with the amount of failures, probes setting themselves on fire, mission failures, and all of that sort of difficulty that they have to endure. And I wanted to ask, like, did you wanted to put that element of design in for that feeling of realism, or to continue that? What was the thought process behind it? Basically, is the question I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think it's important that we again recognize and sit with that discomfort of
Mm,
the thing that we love, the thing that we've worked on, the thing that we are passionate about. We might fail
yes.
before we even get started,
Mm-hmm.
and we're never gonna know, right? But like, what does that motivate you to do then? Do you start over again? Do you build a
Mm-hmm.
new probe and
Mm-hmm.
go and and explore a new system, a new a new whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted that element of terror in the game.
Mm.
Space is scary.
Yes.
Science can be very scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but failure is just again just it's just part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to fail in order to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there is just a chance on the die twice where you can be successful and launch your probe, but then do you make it to your destination?
Yeah.
Oh, who knows? Solar wind could knock your trajectory off. You could hit a micro asteroid. You can
Mm-hmm.
have an electrical failure, which happens all the time. The Japanese mission to the
Mm-hmm.
moon just was almost considered a failure because they were able to land, but then they
Mm.
lost communication to the vehicle,
Mm.
and um, but now it's back up. Now they have communications again, so now the mission's back on, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, whoa, no, this is so cool.
I
So it's
remember that
just
it was terrifying to like sit with that in
yeah,
the news and deal with
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yep, yep,
Uh, Space is terrifying, but I also find it extremely interesting.
horrifying.
It is
We are
horrifying.
not. We as humans are not meant to be in space.
No, yet
Space
strive
is
towards
trying to
it.
kill.
Yeah, but strive towards it, we still do.
Yep,
Uh,
we do.
the
We
folly
do.
of man, the audacity of man, what can we say, right? Truly. But I do love that because there aren't a lot of, because there's always this conversation in the TTRPG space of like failures, and when do failures feel good rather than feel punishing, and like towing that line as a game designer of making sure that a game mechanic doesn't feel too frustrating for players to get into. And I think that your specific choice to have the players be able to come back to phase two when the mission fails is not only one indicative of reality, because folks do come back and try again, um, but it also provides the players enough kind of momentum to continue playing the game and go, all right, that was a bust, time to make a new probe, open up the new page, and they can draw that new probe together once again, maybe create new discoveries again before entering and deploying their spacecraft. And I also wanted to tap this as kind of like playing between phase 3 and phase 2, where for folks at home, phase 3 is where you get to analyze your discovery. And the way the mechanic particularly works is in the building section when you've made your discovery. So these are the truths or the elements about the solar system that exists within this particular setting. And based on the number of instruments that you have, determines how many discoveries you're able to kind of pull out. So basically, the amount of resources you have engaged with your probe is what's going to determine the kind of truths you're able to unearth. But there's always that, again, that discomfort of not being able to know all of the truths because you're all limited by the number of scientific instruments that you have. But the thing I wanted to particularly touch on is a very board gamey design choice here of, because the discovery mechanic blends in this idea of you having physical items at a thing that's designated a little area, which feels very board gamey to me, but also the idea of secrets and the role of secrets within board games that permeate a lot of board games, whether it's hidden role games or games where you hide elements and secrets from one another. And Discoveries is no different. And I wanted to ask you if that was an intentional choice to make this game feel more board gamey rather than RPG like, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know if it was an intentional thing, but it certainly happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
I came from the board game industry,
Mm-hmm.
so I think I brought in, like, again, my thoughts of people playing Cassini was, this is like a warm-up game before you go and play like the bigger game or go play your Dungeons and Dragons or whatever
Mm-hmm.
else. And I don't know, I just thought that, like, I like miniatures, I like terrain, I like
Yeah.
maps, I like things like that, and I wanted people to have like some sort of physical
Mm-hmm.
thing in the game, but it also would mean, like, there is something visceral about watching you set that aflame, right? Like that would I needed something that would really make an impactful ending, and so it was
Yes.
kind of part of that setup. Like, you're taking the time to hand draw out
Mm-hmm.
this cute little probe. You've probably named it,
Mm-hmm.
Dickie McDickerson, whatever, right? Like, you're
I love
probably
the
being
game
silly with
designer's
it.
self-awareness that folks are gonna name this the most
Yeah.
interesting
Oh
out-of-pocket
yeah.
names out there.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yes, we do think about that as
Absolutely.
game designers. We do. Believe us, we do.
Yes. Without a doubt. But yeah, so it just, like, it was very much a way to make it more, and way to make the end more impactful is, here is all
Mm,
this work and this love that you've poured in. Here are your secrets that no other player knows. You could all write the same damn thing, right? And
yes.
you would have no idea, but you could come up with anything.
Mm,
Anything. There is no limit to what you can imagine could be a discovery on this
mm-hmm,
planet, and you're telling a story of what that means to the planet, to the solar system, to your people,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, you can go as deep into that lore as you want, or not. It's just, like, oh, there, this place has water on it, okay, cool.
Yeah.
um but maybe there's tectonic plates,
Mm,
and you won't know that there were tectonic plates. And my favorite is always, there's life of some sort. What type
yeah.
of life? Is it intelligent life? If it's a microorganism, is it, a plant of some sort? Is it, what kind of life could be on there? Because I had a feeling and a hunch that, like, people are going to want to discover life,
Cisco,
right?
yeah.
That's kind of like an ultimate goal of why we
Mm,
go out and do what we do, with when regards to space. And um and when you have something physical and tangible, and you are watching, like, that dream of discovering
mm,
it literally go up in
go-
smoke,
mm,
that was important to try to, like, create that tension.
mm. No, absolutely. And like it feels very visceral, the idea of building this probe, building all the discoveries, building the solar system together, and then seeing it go up in flames. The information that you have, the information you could have had, all go up in flames, and having to be comfortable with the very little you now know, and the value and the cost of what you now know. And with that, I think it's a perfect transition to talk about fire. And your choice for fire here. Again, one of the most metal ways of ending the game was the choice for fire purely from the Cassini true story of the actual program, space exploration program of Cassini, or did you was there another inspiration behind setting everything ablaze at the end?
Yeah, so I remembered that, like, I was at, I think, PAX Unplugged,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody had mentioned to me there is a game out there that uses fire, and that kind of stuck with me. I
Mm.
don't remember the name of the game. I've never played a game that uses fire, but I was like, shit, let's burn some stuff. And, like, it was just I swear, it was just as simple as that. Like, okay, how do I make this game, like, seem really cool? What does an ending mean? Oh, I'm exploding my ship intentionally
Yeah.
into the atmosphere of a planet to meet its fiery death end. Like,
Does this mean
God.
you started at the end in designing Cassini and then worked
Yes,
backwards?
yes,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. How'd you find that process?
Um, I honestly, it was a blur. I wrote this game in like 8 hours.
I forget. I keep
the
forgetting. You wrote this in 8 hours.
it was a fever dream. I was just like, ching, ching. I was like, okay, I don't know. This looks cool. I'm gonna play it a couple times, and then I had Michael Hunt,
Yeah.
who's Unmade Gaming, was my editor on it, and so like
Mm.
we went over the rules and like kind of like he did a lot of the editing for me to make sure that like grammar and punctuation, all that stuff was
Mm-hmm.
really good, but also that it was a playable game, because I didn't play test it, except for between the two of us. Like,
Oh
I
my
ran my own
goodness.
scenarios and play tested it, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have other people play test it. Which, don't do
Mm.
that. Don't do what I did with that. Have other people actually play test your game. I think I just got lucky with this one.
Yes, we have.
Have people play test your game.
Yeah, we've talked about playtesting here on the channel before. We've spoken to Aaron Lim, who is part of the Session Zero playtesting group,
Mhm.
and we talked to a bunch of other folks who have playtested games in different ways. Playtest your games and playtest them often. It's fun. Please enjoy the process of playtesting your game. That's so interesting that you worked backwards when designing Cassini, and how, like you said, it was a fever dream of being able to write your game in that pure creative fervor and get something done within that
Went for it.
8 hours.
Yeah.
And
Yep. And
that
then the
is
next was
incredible.
doing the layout.
Yeah,
The next it was literally just layout. So.
which is a very cool layout. All my sci-fi nerds, I think, will really, really appreciate the layout of this rulebook. Folks, please go and pick it up. It is a 9-page rulebook. It is a very, very easy game to get into. Heck, it's so easy. I might do it for our Discord server. So this is a great chance for you to jump onto my Discord server and play a funny little game. We will not be using fire. My mother will not approve if I set fire in the house. Um, but it would be a very, very fun thing for us to get into. And with that, no, I think this is a great time for us to open up the audience Q&A. Folks, please throw your message to chat and ask a question to either Gnome or myself about Cassini, about Gnome's design choices, things like that. Feel free to throw your questions in the chat. Meanwhile, Gnome and I will talk about how much of a sci-fi nerd that he is. I just genuinely need. So you started with the fire and then moved backwards. The And I know that you're a nerd and you knew about the Cassini storyline. Um, did When did that like connection emerge? Was that almost like an immediate thing of like, oh, I want a game with fire. I love space. Oh yeah, and there's this thing with the actual Cassini program, or was
Yeah.
there? Yes, is that how that
Yeah,
how
yeah,
that
no, you
happened?
stopped right there. You nailed it. It was, because the mission had like just ended 2 years prior,
Mm-hmm.
so like, and around my birthday too. So like, it was
Oh
like, oh,
wow,
this is great.
really?
Yeah, it was like September 2017 is when they did their end of mission, and actually
Mm.
the last sentence in the rule book, when you complete the game, you have one of the
Yes.
players say the following: "We have lost signal with the spacecraft. This is our end of mission." Is
Mm-hmm.
actually what was said by the director at end of mission. So it is a direct
Oh
quote.
wow.
Um, because you could
That's
watch the end of the mission. It's all public because it was NASA, right?
yeah.
Um, NASA and oh my gosh, was it ESA? I think it was also ESA and NASA teamed up for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so that was just part of mission control. We we've lost contact with the craft, and that's it. We're
Oh
done,
my
and that's when
goodness.
everybody claps and cheers and can stand up from their thing and
Mm-hmm.
just revel that like it was successful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was pretty much like, okay, I need to make a game about endings,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to make a game, and I want to make a game about space because I do.
Mm-hmm.
I love space so much.
Yeah.
Boom, Cassini. That it was like it was, and then I just went, and then I just wrote,
Yeah.
and I just did it, and I made it happen. So.
That is so deeply cool to me, and now I will ask it an indulgent question, mostly for myself. What what are satisfying endings to you, as regardless of whether you're a designer or a performer or a GM? What is your favorite type of ending?
I like an ending that's not just meaningful, but it's something that just lingers.
Mm.
It's haunting.
Mm.
Um, for example, I have never watched Lost, and I
Oh,
will not
yes.
spoil anything about Lost. I don't know why I never watched it. It was such a big phenomenon at the time that I was
Yeah.
growing up. I think there was something else that was on at the same time, and I was watching that, or I just didn't care. I don't know. I didn't get into Lost,
Yeah.
but I sat down for one episode, and it was the one with Dominic Monaghan. I always say his name wrong.
Hmm.
Who played in Lord of the Rings, right? Who was
Yes.
Merry in Lord of the Rings. Um, and the end of that episode was all about him passing on this piece of pivotal information to
Mm.
whoever was with him, and
Mm.
as he's drowning, right,
Mm-hmm.
like the grabs a marker and he writes on his hand and he slams his hand up against the window pane as the water is flooding in
Mm.
because he can't talk, they can't hear, they can't communicate, and it just says not Penny's boat. I don't know what the fuck that means. I got goosebumps right now. The way that ended, though, to
Mm.
me, that was masterful storytelling, and it still
Mm.
haunts me
Yeah.
because I don't know anything about these characters. I don't know what the heck is going on,
Mm.
but holy cannoli, what a way to tell a story and to
Yes.
utilize somebody's life in that way,
Yeah.
to literally pass on a message, a simple message,
Mm-hmm.
probably change a ton of outcomes of that show. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hoping it sure meant something because it would suck if it didn't. But
I
it
love that you
was.
haven't finished Lost, but you know this one episode, and that
I just the one
it,
episode.
it was
Yeah, and it
haunting
lives
enough.
with me. And like this episode came out in like 2006 or 2005.
Mm-hmm.
It haunts me. To me, that is a good end. That is a good
Mm.
indication of storytelling.
Mm.
That is a good sacrifice of life.
Yeah.
Just masterful storytelling for that one particular episode. Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know how else to work, but man, that lives with me, and I want to tell stories that are that impactful.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, I deeply resonate with that. The idea of like haunting narratives and being again like it permeates the entirety of your rulebook of allowing the discomfort of not having every question answered. And I think that is equal. It's true in space exploration, it's true in your game, and it's true in storytelling as well. I think there is a beauty and honestly an impact to being able to just sit with your questions and sit with your reflections of what could or may have been, and allowing the audience or other players who are at your table be able to just linger in the questions. So this is my permission to GMs everywhere. Don't have all the answers. That's okay.
yeah, it
I'm
is
pretty sure Lost didn't give a bunch of answers either. So
I have heard that too. I have heard that the end was something to be desired.
that's what I've heard too, and I've not watched a single episode of Lost. It feels like a mountainous task to have to watch the entirety of Lost. But I that hearing that episode is I did feel goosebumps. I was like, oh, that would make me feel a lot of feelings, especially if I love that character. Ouch.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Imagine if you loved that character and
Yeah.
like that's it.
That's
It's
it.
like, oh shit.
And
But
this
what's even
is
more important was the
it
message.
was the
Like,
message, the
oh my
legacy that continues
yeah.
on in the narrative. We love an NPC that haunts the narrative. Shout out to all the Transplaner fans out there. Sorry. With that, it doesn't seem like the folks have any questions. So with that, I think we can wrap up Designer Spotlight. First of all, thank you so much, for hanging out with me. Why don't you go and introduce yourself and let folks know how they can support you, where they can find you, all that good stuff. Go.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Gnome or Luca or either or. Uh, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm a trans person who makes content on the internet. I'm nomadic, literally everywhere. I don't know. It's probably me. If you see it online, it's likely me. Just assume so. Or if it's like really heinous stuff, it's not me. That's not me. That's not my vibe. But yeah, I do some morning streams every Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. Central Time, bright and early. If you're waking up trying to start the day or you're trying to unwind and end your evening, come hang out. We do a lot of like journaling, a lot of reflection stuff, talking about books and other media, things to journal about essentially. And it's just like a really fun, chill, cozy time for me to start my day. And it's a good co-working opportunity. Excuse me. So we just kind of vibe. We just kind of hang out. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me. Thanks so much for having me on. You are an
It
absolute delight.
No, my pleasure. I had such a delight of a time interviewing you, and I know him as being incredibly humble here. Please go and check out his co-working streams where he journals, he talks about stationery, and it's a really, really good and chill vibe. Join the community if you're into stationery and into journaling and things like that. Um, like single-handedly got me to organize my life through journaling, truly, and now I feel a lot more on top of my stuff. And speaking of being on top of my stuff, I should also introduce myself. Hi everyone, I'm Valiant Dorian. I assume his pronouns. You can find me all on the internet at Valiant Dorian or at Otso SpiritBear. Please show that lovely treasure on to set you on. Things for me to particularly promote is Chaos is back this weekend on Transplanar RPG. It's time for us to explore the City of Heaven, playing the system City of Mist in Arc 2. And we'll see how long my misbeloved twin brother of the Chosen One is able to keep up his facade. And if you want to check us out, go ahead and check us out on twitch.tv/transplanar RPG on Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Other things for me to spotlight is the Beast Within's Quick Start Guide will be coming out in February. Please keep your eyes out for that. It is my first ever TTRPG. It is a TTRPG where you play as SpiritBear, reminiscent of 80s and 90s grunge fighting games. If you're into that, keep an eye out for all things Beast Within here. Use !beast to find all of the information there. With that, so I've talked about Beast Within, talked about Transplanar. Also, designer spotlight. We're changing. We're definitely changing over here. We're doing a huge rebrand. In fact, we're rebranding to Dicey Banter, where I'll be talking with all the types of movers and shakers that exist in the TTRPG community. Whether you're an artist, whether you're a designer, AP performer, or GM producer, I want to chat with you. If you're any one of those people, hit me up. Let's go and talk. And I'm looking forward to introducing this new show for you all. We're upping the production. It's going to be really, really great. And as we wrap things up, thank you once again to Gnome for joining us on Designer Spotlight. It's been such a pleasure to have you. And
Oh, thank you.
it's such a joy. And do not touch that dial, folks. We're going to be rating somebody incredible, no doubt. I see that Vanna is playing Dave the Diver. Let's go and raid Vanna right now. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. And I will see you the next time we stream. Keep an eye out on my socials for all that information. With that, thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.